Hello and welcome, my name is Gamedog and today I'll be showing you a solo and small scale Stamina Dragonknight PvP build video for the Murkmire patch. Now this is a build that I've been playing with for a few patches by now and that I made a 1vx and small scale montage a few weeks ago with, and there's some of you guys wanted to see a build video for that. I've changed a few things with this build, so it's a bit different from some of the other builds that I've made, which have been quite similar throughout the time. They've pretty much all been running 7th Legion, so I thought I'd try something different. And I've adapted and changed a few things to make it more appropriate for the current patch and for the nerfs that came with the Murkmire patch here. So let's get right into the build and I'll explain some of my choices here along the way. So first up here we have the monster set, which as usual is a monster set of choice. You can run any monster set that you really would like to. I'm running Bloodspawn since I personally feel that it fits the DK scenario best. It provides the alt gen, which can help you proc that battle roar passive, and it provides some of the resistances you'll need when you get outnumbered, especially now that you're slower than you were before. Speed pots got nerfed, so we're back at using the immovable pots instead, and we have also dropped all the swift on our jewelry, which means that we're not as fast as we used to be. That's also why our next set here is Fury. I've shifted this out with 7th Legion because I feel like Fury fits the scenario of the current patch more than 7th does. And Fury pretty much does the same thing. The more damage you take and the more pressure you're under, the more damage you'll gain. The only thing is that Fury has a higher cap of damage than 7th has, and it also is much more consistent, especially depending on how much pressure you're under. And now that more people have more champion points than ever, critical ratings are also sky high, especially if you're fighting Nightblades or any other builds in light armor or medium armor for that matter. So you'll be able to stack a lot of damage through that because people are going to be hitting you for critical damage. That's also why it's important to run a lot of impen this patch. I'm running 2.6k impen, which is about where you want to be. It's about 40% less damage taken from critical damage, so we want to be about there. Next set here is Bone Pirate, which is a pretty standard set. Every stamina class pretty much runs this by now, and even the Magicka classes have gotten their own version of it now in this patch. So we still run this together with the Dubious Cameron Throne Food, which provides the best overall max stat and sustain for this build, especially now that I've changed Ransack out with Heroic Slash, which I'll get into in a moment here. So looking at it, I've shifted all the Swift out here with Infused, 2 infused weapon damage, and then 1 infused recovery here, which lands us at about 1.8k recovery on front bar. And on back bar, it's a pretty nice sustained base, I think. And considering we're running pots now that actually provides us with resources, remember that lingering pots, when we used those back in the prior patches, we had to do a lot of heavy attack weaving to supply ourselves with the resources we didn't gain. So now we actually can run a more costly spammable, as well as running a bit lower regen. So next up here we have our sword and board. It's here we have our Fury. On the back bar here we're going to be running Asylum Greatsword, so we're not going to get the 2 Fury pieces on here, which doesn't really matter because you're going to be taking most of the pressure on the front bar. You're only ever going to be using the back bar for dots, executes and Dragon Leap, as well as applying the double dot poisons here, which I'll get into in a moment. But first off here, our front bar, we're running Nirnhorned Sword and Board, sturdy here on the shield with Stam enchant. You could run Tri-Stat enchant like I'm doing on all the big pieces, which you do want to run. On the small pieces you can just run Stam enchants, normal Stam enchants there, but definitely big pieces, Tri-Stat enchants. You could do this on Sword and Board as well, but I do prefer to have a bit more resources on my front bar, as it's my main damage bar and also my main, what can you say, sort of sustain bar. That's where I'm going to get my resources from and where I'm going to be most of the time, so having a higher resource pool there I feel is more appropriate. And here we have the weapon damage enchant as well, which we want to proc as much as we can, so I've put this on the front bar. On the back bar here we have our double dot poisons. I usually use these when I'm playing solo with a build. If I go in any group or I just don't feel it's fun to run double dots anymore, some people do get pissed because of that, I usually run the disease damage enchant, which provides me with the minor defile, which is about 10% now since it got buffed. So all the minor buffs have all been buffed to this current patch here, so it actually does a bit more work than it used to. And if you combine the minor defile together with a major defile from reverb, you're going to be getting quite a nice debuff. You're going to be getting 50% heal debuff basically. As you can see here, we have 40% heal debuff on there, and if we count 10% together with the disease enchant, we're going to get that nice 50%, maybe a bit over because of our befoul points. And as well, it's Nirnhunt here on the back bar for maximizing the amount of damage we can do with Dragon Leap. Now, usually I will be running this for solo situations. We are running 5 heavy armor, 1 medium, 1 light to gain the Undaunted passives as usual, which does put us at this pretty nice max stam pool. I'll get into the stats here now. So looking at it, we have about 10k max magic here. We don't really need to have too much max magic. It's not too important since we're pretty much only using it for fragmented shields as well as using it for volatile. We do use it once in a while for Flames of Oblivion, but we pretty much only go ahead and use Flames of Oblivion if we are in a position where our damage and sustain is good. If we're getting pressured, there's no reason to sit and waste time and energy on Flames of Oblivion. If you have 10 guys on you, you need to keep fragmented shield up over anything. The major mending from this thing is incredible, and you do want to keep that up at all times, especially now that it's 5.4 seconds, so it's a pretty long duration. Yeah, but back to the stats here, we have 26k health, which is a pretty nice flat pool. You do want to have about 26k this patch since damage is really high, especially with the dual wield bleed builds people are running with the automatic proc, enchant procs. It's insane this patch, so you want to have a bit of a beefy health bar there, even though you're in heavy armor. Looking at the max stamina, we have 36k, which is a pretty nice max stat value. I am a red guard, which helps me quite a lot, gaining that max stats, both for the stam resources as well as for the recovery here, as you can see. But if you were any other class putting into stam, you need about like that 34, 35k, I'd say at least. If you get below that, you kind of get into the point where using a lot of expensive abilities can get you into sustained struggles. So I feel most comfortable with this stam pool size here, which is obviously achieved by the Bone Pirate and Dubious Cameron Throne. So looking at our critical values, as you can see, it's actually pretty high, and that's because we are running Flames of Oblivion, so we do get that extra critical percentage. We're about 40% crit, which also counts for our heals. So 40% of all our heals are going to be critical heals. That, together with major mending, really helps a lot, and we gain some pretty nice healing out of it. It pretty much negates the fact that we're not running any lingering pots anymore. So I don't really feel the healing loss at all. I'm pretty much at the same level as I was before the patch, I think. Looking at the recovery, I have 1.8k as a flat value. If we buff that by taking a pot, we get to about 2.1k, which is really nice. It actually allows you to roll dodge and block a whole lot, since you can really fast get your stam recovery back on track again. You don't have to do too many heavy attacks as well. And when you look at it, because we're using Heroic Slash now instead of Ransack, we have a more expensive spammable. It's 2.5k instead of the prior 1.4k, so it's like 1k more stamina cost per round we're using this, and that does claim a bit of resources, so that's why we're running our sustain this high. Looking at our resistances here, which is the last spots buffed without Bloodspawn procced. Obviously if we had Bloodspawn proccing, that's 6k more. We have about 2.8k here spell resistance and 2.6k physical resistance, which I feel is fine, even though heavy armor doesn't perform as well as it used to do last year and the last couple of patches. So Impen, as I said, 2.6k, you want to be about there. 2.6k is 40% less damage taken from critical attacks, and that's a really good place to be. You do want to make sure this is your goal, because if you have any less than this, you're going to get into the problem where people are going to be bursting you down really quick, and most of the incoming damage is going to seem quite unreliable. Reducing critical damage reduces the chance of someone bursting you instantly, so it really helps a lot, and it makes you a lot tankier when you're dealing with a lot of people. So yeah, our Monderstone here is Warrior. Since we already got a really nice sustain here, we put points into Warrior so we can get our spell damage up to that 3k, as you can see here. I think 3k is enough as a base buff. If we add the 2 more buffs we have with Weapon Enchant and with Fury here, we can get up to about 4.3, I think was the highest I hit last time, which is pretty nice. It's not the highest weapon damage in the world, but it pretty much suits what we're trying to do here. And it really provides for some awesome healing. The best thing is that you can pretty much have it up reliantly at all times, because you're going to be doing damage and proccing this up front, as well as when you're taking damage, you're going to be getting your critical weapon damage here stacking. So it's a pretty nice reliable damage tooltip once you get there. And of course we're running dubious camera throwing us off food, as I showed you before. Now going into the skills here, I'll jump over these quickly, but first off I'd like to talk a bit in depth about why I chose Heroic Slash over Ransack. I've been running Ransack for quite a long time now, and the main reason has been because of its low resource cost and its high potential damage, as well as its debuff, which it applies by just doing the rotation. Now, considering that we're running a build with higher resource pools this patch, and the fact that you can get minor maim as well as minor heroism, which supplies you with more ultimate, which again the stam DK and the DK in general really benefits from. As you can see in our Earth and Heart here, we have the Battle Roar passive, which is one of the key, one of the key resource bases for the stam DK, and it really provides you with the resources both in magic hand stamina that you'll need for igneous shields and for all the costly abilities you might have to use. Again, the stam DK relies a lot on the weapon damage abilities here from the weapon trees, since we don't have any class spammables. So Heroic Slash is a choice that I really like. I actually enjoy using this a lot here lately, even though I still feel that Ransack provides the better cost to damage / debuff utility. But I can really feel how Heroic Slash provides a lot more pressure on your enemy. One thing you gotta note though is that you really want to run Heroic Slash if you can sustain it. So you do want that 1.8k recovery here as a base recovery before you get yourself into using Heroic Slash. That's at least where I feel comfortable. Obviously you can choose and mix around what you want and what you feel comfortable with using, but this is where I find my spot with this build. So, and the debuffs is so amazing, especially if you're singling out one enemy and you're fighting him face to face, which is what you want to do in a DK. You want to be upfront and aggressive as usual. That's why we have so many dots on our bars still. I mean, with the double dot poisons, we have 5 dots. We have Noxious Breath here, Volatile, Venomous Claw, and then double dots from the front bar here. So that's 5 dots ticking away at people, with the 50% heal debuff going, 40% heal debuff going from reverb here. So all that pressure really helps you a lot, and providing those debuffs as well as minor maim, for example, makes you a lot more tanky and a lot more capable of being in the face of your enemy, which is where you want to be. So next up here we have Flames of Oblivion. This is a nice little damage every 5 seconds here. It adds a nice little burst. It actually scales off of your max resource, so if stamina is your max resource, it'll be doing more damage as it scales with the stam pool. It still does flame damage though, but that actually procs one of the passives here, which provides us, as you can see here, when we apply burning to an enemy, we restore magicka. So this actually applies that and helps us restore magicka, which we can use for more Flames of Oblivion or more fragmented shields or volatile, depending on what you need, obviously. So the resource gain we get from this is not too bad, as well as the fact that we're getting weapon criticals, which gets us to about that 40% weapon crit that we're running here on the front bar. So and this provides weapon crit to everything, as I said, healing, damage, anything will so more weapon crit is always a good choice. Next up here, reverb. I'm still using it even though it's only 4 seconds. So as long as you hit people with this on cooldown, which means that you CC them every time they're CCable, you'll be pretty much having it up at all times. Next up here we have Vigor. This is our main heal over time. We use this in combination with fragmented shields, and these two can basically keep us running. I don't really miss the lingering pots anymore. I do feel like these two provides us with the healing we need, especially now that the duration here of major mending is as long as it is. It's 5.4 seconds of the 25% healing received. So yeah, and that's the next, fragmented shields. Now using igneous shields, or fragmented shields in this case, also provides us with a bit of stamina from using an Earthen Heart ability, which see if I can actually find where it is here. So we restore almost 1,000 stamina each time we use this. So this is a really great sustain tool, especially if you're countering a lot of people at once and you're getting bombarded by 4 or 5 people. You're going to be having some extra sustain coming from using igneous, as well as the extra healing received. So and that's also the reason I'm not using rally either. I really like forward momentum over even over something like Reflective Plate, because the duration is longer. Even though it got nerfed this patch, it's not 10 seconds anymore, it's only 4 seconds. I still feel like it helps more than Reflective Plate, especially now that Zergs can swallow you up much easier. You don't have the movement speed you used to have, so immovability is really what you count on. That's also again why we're using the immovability pots here on our front bar. It's really important to have immovability now, especially because everyone is slower than they were before. So but I still feel like these two healing, this heal over time and major mending here actually keeps us up. So I don't feel like rally is too needed really. I was afraid this patch when Murkmire launched that I was going to have to run rally again, but I actually feel like I'm doing fine with these two. But that's just my opinion on it. Next up here is Spell Wall. This is our front panic button. When you get Zerged ultimate, we use this when we're knee deep in shit and we want to get rid of all the people on us. It's pretty cheap. You can use it pretty much repetitively now that you have minor heroism here going, as well as the blood spawn. So we're going to be having a lot of alt gen going around us, which means that we can use this let's say every 25 seconds that we're getting Zerged. So if you get Zerged or caught in an unfortunate situation, or you just need some immediate resources through Battle Roar, you can use this here and get some resources and reflect projectiles for 7 seconds. This is also really nice if you're finding a lot of ranged casters like Mag Blades, which have become really popular. Apparently I seem to always run into Mag Blades, and usually multiple of them. So having this provides a bit of space and a bit of time where we can get resources back and reposition ourselves. Next up here on the back bar here we have our first dot, Venomous Claw. This is as usual on my bar. It deals more damage every time it ticks. It's really low on cost and provides a lot of pressure combined with Noxious Breath, which is the second dot we have. These both last for 10 seconds, so they're pretty easy to keep up as well. And combined with the double dot poisons, they provide a lot of offensive pressure, as I said. You can really put this on one guy and then pin him down and really make him feel the impact of it, especially when you got your heal debuff going on him as well. And it provides, Noxious Breath here provides Major Fracture, which reduces physical resistance as well, so that's where we get our main armor debuff from. You'll need this, especially on a class in heavy armor, since you don't have any penetration you get from anywhere. Next up here is Volatile. We use this both to get healing received, since it's apparently a thing. Let me see if I can find it here. Is increasing the amount of block here, while running active power ability is active, healing received increasable by 12%, as well as we use it as a way to get Nightblades and Sneaky Boys out of Cloak, and it can also provide or major resistance buffs, which you obviously want to keep up at all times. So it's a really great utility, and I still love using this over the other morph. Next up here we have Reverse Slice. This is our Execute. A lot of you might be wondering now that since speed got nerfed, why am I not running a Gap Closer? And the simple answer to that is I have tried to run it and I feel like it just feels clunky for me. Gap Closers, or especially Stampede, at least in my case, does not feel like it connects very well with the enemy players. And most of the time when I go for people, I just get stopped on my way there. So I've really not prioritized this very well, and I don't really like using the Gap Closer anymore, to be honest. If you're chasing someone on a horse, you can't even hit them with it. So I've just chosen to run my dots over it. And to be honest, I don't really miss the Gap Closer personally. But again, that's a personal choice. If you want to change or run something else, that's totally up to you, depending on what you feel comfortable with playing. So, but again, choice Reverse Slice. We're using this because it deals damage to our nearest enemy, especially if we use Dragon Leap and we get multiple people low on health. Using this immediately after can get a lot of them into the Execute zone, which you can get a lot of kills for. Like on multiple occasions, I've managed to kill like 2 or 3 people at once with this. So you do want to run this morph over the other. Executioner only provides a 50% more damage to the execute rate, which is not worth it really. You want to split the damage. Next up here we have Full Momentum. As I said, I don't really feel Rally is too appropriate. I actually feel like this healing coming from Vigor and Major Mending provides the healing we need. As well as I feel like running this over Reflective Scales is much better, since you get the longer duration, even though Full Momentum got nerfed. So, and it's a bit sad. Forward momentum was really good last patch, but I do understand the change and the nerf for forward. I mean, last patch you couldn't snare anyone basically. So now snares matter, and they've become quite a problem. So you want to get as much snare removal and immunity duration as you can. Again, why we're running the immovable pots too. So this combined with immovable pots will basically keep you out of snares 90% of the time. And it's only sometimes you'll get into the position where you're getting worn down by snares and immovability. And in that case, you'll just need to roll dodge, simply. Which is fine on this build here. We have a lot more resources than we used to have last patch on this. So roll dodging for me isn't quite the problem it used to be. Next up here we have Take Flight. This is our damage ult as well as our pretty much only burst ability. Now when I'm saying burst, I mean something that can gain people into execute range immediately. So this is our only really hard-hitting burst as well as a knockback. Do be wary though, if you're running this in a group, you might want to switch to Dawnbreaker. Because Dawnbreaker, Dragon Leap can spread people around. In groups, Dawnbreaker will stun them where they stand, which can help your group a lot sometimes, since you're not spreading enemies around all over the place. Another reason could be using Dawnbreaker because of the dot. It deals damage over time, which, since we have 15% more points into that than champion points, which I'll get into in a moment, will help us a lot, burning people down over time. As I said, applying pressure, and you can apply pressure to multiple people with this. So if you hit a slap of like 3 people with this and some of them get into low health, and you've already focused your dot and double dot poison on one of those guys, he's going to be in a really bad position now, and he's going to struggle to get his health up. And that's why you can wear him down with the heal debuffs and just gnaw at him until he runs out of resources or he dies from the burst alone. But I do like Dragon Leap as well. It's cheaper, it deals more damage, it's more immediate. It sometimes bugs out, I've seen. There's sometimes if you animation cancel it too fast, it'll actually bug out and not even launch. But you're just gonna have to remember that don't try to animation cancel roll dodge Dragon Leap. It's sometimes it'll end wrong and it'll just clip out and not even do anything. But my personal favorite is still Dragon Leap. The tooltip is just so high. Let me just look at what it is actually. Yeah, it's that 20k tooltip, and as you can see here on the front bar, we have a 8.4k heroic slash tooltip with the 3k weapon damage as it is currently. So if we buffed it up with our weapon enchant and our fury here, we'd get the 4.3k weapon damage, which would probably be about 9k here and about 22k on the Dragon Leap, as far as I've seen at least. So that is the skills and my choices regarding the skills on this build here. I'll go quickly into the champion points. I think all you guys probably already know all the things I've been speaking about this video, so I'll try to make this a bit less painful. Next, first up here we have Warlord, 56 points into this. You want to get the round numbers again, because I still hear that this champion point system doesn't scale well. It still scales in whole numbers apparently, so we're going to be using whole numbers here. 56 in here, 20%, 9% the bashing focus. We're not running any into sprinter anymore because we don't have lingering pots, so we're not sprinting like a madman, which we used to do. Bashing focus is really nice. You're going to be animation cancelling a lot. At least I am, so I feel it's appropriate to have a few points in here. Next up here we have tenacity, 7%, 27 points in there to fully charged heavy attacks. You want this because sometimes you are going to be doing heavy attacks, especially if you want to go into a burst like a Dragon Leap. Do a heavy attack into a Dragon Leap can really get people into execute range or straight up kill some people. Next up here we have Mooncalf, 27 points in here, 7% as well. This is our recovery. We want a bit in here, even though that I don't prioritize this to get it like to 10% or something. I feel like 7% is fine with the 1.8k recovery we have. So next up here we have our tumbling, 56 points in here, 20%. This is our roll dodge capabilities. Now we are on heavy armor, so we gotta have some of this if we want to roll dodge, which you do need to this patch. I mean, damage is so high, as I said before. Everyone's champion points have gone way too far. I think it's one of the problems with the champion points tree is that you'll just get to the point where people's damage just get over the edge, and this patch you'll have bleed builds that can just completely drain you. So you do want to have a bit in there, or quite to say a lot in there, to get away and get some space when you're getting pressured by a lot of people. Or, as I said, if your removal pots and your forward momentum fails you, which it sometimes does because of the nerfs, you will have to roll dodge out of the situation maybe, or cover yourself or get into some line of sight using this. So next up here we have Shadow Ward. This is our blocking capability, 56 points, 20% in there, and the rest of the points into Befoul, which is an uneven number, but again, I'm just putting the rest of the points in here, which provides us with that 40% heal debuff, which we have on Reverb. Next up here we have Blessed here, 7%. This is our healing done. Next up here, 20 points into Shattering Blows, 9% in there. We want this against people who are using damage shields. Even though Max Orcs got nerfed, they can still be quite tough now that their damage shield scales off of resistances, so having some in here might not be too bad. And the same for Nightblades using Healing Ward, even though Healing Ward lost its healing, so I still feel it's appropriate. Next up here, Physical Weapons Expert. This is our damage from heavy attacks and light attacks. Since we're doing a lot of heavy attack and light attack weaving in our animation cancelling, we're going to be needing some of this. Light attacks have been buffed throughout the last year, so they deal actually quite a lot of damage. Next up here we have Master at Arms, 66 points, 22% in there. And then we have Thaumaturge, 15 points, 15% in there, 37 points. This is our damage over time. This is our double dot poisons, Nauseous Breath, Venomous Claw, even our Volatile Armor or our Dawnbreaker. They'll all scale off of this. Next up here, Precise Strikes, critical damage abilities as well as critical healing. We have that 40% critical as I showed you before, which is quite nice on our front bar here, 40% crit. So we will need some points in here to get most out of that. So remember that 15% in here, 37 points as well. Then we have 49 into Mighty. This is 11% extra damage done with weapon, physical, poison, disease damage, any damage types we do basically. And then we have the rest into Piercing. So whatever is left in this tree, just put it into Piercing because it scales in a whole number and not a percentage. Next up here we have 66 into Ironclad. Oh, by the way, you really want points in here to get the Perfect Strike as well. This gives us the critical percentage. Even though it's been nerfed a bit, it's 9% now. It's still quite good to have that. So get that as well. Yeah. Where did I come from here? 66 points in here, 22 reduces damage taken from direct damage abilities. So it's basically the counter to this champion point here. So you do want to have as many points as you can in here as well. 31 into Resistance. This is kind of my leftover points as well as the amount of points I need to get in there to get the 2.6k. So you just fill as many points as you need to put in here until you get 2.6k crit resistance, which is where you want to be. That's about the 40% less damage taken from crits. Next up here we have 120 points in here. This is important. And I missed this last time and I heard your cries. Unchained, important passive. Get this. Like over anything. If you get stunned, you have 5 seconds to use your next stamina ability at an 80% less cost. That's massive. Really important. Great for sustain and great to squeeze out a little vigor or something in there for cheap costs, especially when you're getting pressured and pounded on a lot. So get this there. And we've done that by 37 into Hardy, 37 into Elemental Defender, and 46 into Thick-Skinned. Reduces damage over time, magic and physical damage elements. Well, magic and physical damage elements up here. Next up here, we have the Lord here, 14% into Expert Defender. I'm just putting points to get the 9% value here. Light attacks do hurt, as I say. They actually, they got buffed here throughout the last year, and they do hurt, especially from things like Mag Blades and other Magicka classes. They can really hurt sometimes and provide a nice damage over time, sustained pressure, you know what I mean? So you do want some points in here to protect yourself against that, especially if you have a Zerg on your ass. They're going to be spamming light attacks all the time. Next up here we have Quick Recovery, 27 points in here, 7% extra healing received. This is healing received from other people in your group. This could be off heal, or if you are lucky to have an actual healer or someone providing enough burst heals to keep you up, this helps a lot. So next up here we have Heavy Armor Focus, 12 points in here. This is just all our leftover points. And I've kind of split this in between Resistant and Heavy Armor Focus because I do feel like since Heavy Armor is not as highly, it doesn't have as high resistance as it used to have a few patches ago. So I really thought that putting a few points in there wouldn't hurt. And it's actually, you don't really feel too much of a difference, but it really helps out to even the numbers a bit, especially because by nature the Stam DK, well, the DK in general has more spell resistance than it has physical resistance. And now that it's pretty much a stamina meta, you'll want to have a bit more in here, at least in my opinion. So that is my build, guys. I hope you enjoy. I hope you could use some of it. Please like and comment down below. Share some knowledge among each other. I really like when people get into conversations down there and talk about what things to improve and what things you could alternatively do to fit your playstyle. I'm not always right. This is just how I play the build in the current patch. I've been Gamedog, you've been awesome, and I'll see you guys later.